Good morning and welcome to Old Man Energy. I'm your host, Flint Anderson. If this is your first time with us, glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. And if you are coming back, I'm glad you found some value. Buckle up, folks. This episode is not going to be your typical episode. I have a lot to say about what's going on right now, and it's probably going to piss some of you people off, and that's fine. Because let's call it what it is. Let's name these problems and let's get them out in the open and start having some real discussions about them. Because there's a lot to unpack about parenting and children, and something which I happen to be an expert on with 7 kiddos. Let's get started. I'm going to jump right into it. We are going to be talking today about breaking generational cycles and breaking curses. That's going to lead into a lot of other stuff. I'll lead with a story for myself. This is what got me thinking about this, and I hope that this impacts you emotionally as it did me. A lot of you know I'm very close to one of my granddaughters. Her dad's out of the picture. He just isn't around. So I spend a lot of time with her. I make it a point to do things with her, and she brings a lot of joy to my life. One of her passions right now, as most 7-year-olds are, is she likes Wicked, and she enjoys the movies and just everything about it. So we talked about when it came out. She told me about a month ago, she goes, Pop, Wicked for Good comes out on the 21st. I'm like, yep, didn't even realize she knew how to read a calendar, but she did. She's a very smart young lady. So, yep, we're going to go see it opening weekend, no problem. Last week, we were sitting at her karate class, and I was talking to her mom and said, okay, well, what's going on this weekend? I'm not sure, so I want to take her to the movies. And she looked at me and goes, well, Dad, you might want to talk to her because she's been telling everybody that you're taking her on opening day, which is the 21st. Like, oh, okay, well, it's Friday and theaters are typically crowded, thinking like an adult. But okay, no problem. You know, this is an experience for her, making memories. You can't talk about all this stuff without actually living this stuff. So fine, we're going to make some memories. I'll take her on the 21st. Well, this last week for me has been one hell of a week. It's been crazy. I'm going to have some notes on that. You'll see them in my Impossible Challenge updates. But understand that if anything could go wrong, it probably did. And up to and including my truck breaking down. So on Friday, my daughter calls and says, you know, I'm going to pick her up. And what's the plan for this evening? This is about 3:30, 4 o'clock. Truck's broken down. Just let her know that I'll take her later. I'll take her this weekend. Not sure what day. Then I thought about it for a minute. I was like, matter of fact, you know what? You don't have to tell her that. If she's going to be disappointed, then I'll let her down. You have her call me and I'll tell her. Again, thinking like an adult, thinking like a guy, thinking like, okay, I've got to get this done, got to get that done. And I went back to work until Des mentally slapped the crap out of me and said, you know, are you sure you want to do that? While I was already thinking, I don't want to let her down. What am I doing? So on top of this massive crush of crap to do, as a matter of fact, I wasn't even done with my second workout for 75 hard yet. I called her mom back and I said, you know what? Forget it. We'll just take her. Meet me at the mall at 7:30, 7:15, whatever time I told her. I had just barely enough time to finish my workout, get cleaned up, and go and meet her. Guys, this was the right decision. 100%. Walked into the store where they were waiting for me, where they had been waiting for me almost since the beginning of my second workout, actually. But walked into the store where they've been waiting for me. She runs up. She jumps up in my arms, gives me a big old hug, just super excited. And I'm not going to try and BS you. I was pretty excited driving down there too, because I like spending time with this young lady. She's a really cool little kid, and we have a lot of fun together. I like the way she looks at the world, and she just tries to figure things out. Anyway, we went, spent time in the movies. She was very happy, got her snacks and her popcorn, and it was a bit long for a 7-year-old, and it was getting late. It was probably the wrong time to do it, but you know what? She crawled up in my lap, she watched the movie, and she made it through the whole thing. All in all, 12 out of 10. That day was a huge win, and not everything bad happened that day. Lunch with Dustin, who was on the podcast last week, and we had a great time then, and it really forced me to alter my perspective of how things go and how we plan our days. And folks, as parents and as grandparents, plan your days around making as many memories with your kids as possible. Trust me, there will be times when you won't be able to spend time with your kids or your grandkids. There's things are going to come up. So as a result, make sure that you're spending as much time with them as you can when you can, even if it's inconvenient. So I want to lead with that story because prioritizing our kids, prioritizing our family is huge. I mean, why the hell else are we working so freaking hard if we don't take time to actually enjoy it, to spend time with our kids? And coming into Thanksgiving weekend, as a matter of fact, I believe this episode drops on Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, y'all. This is a time and an opportunity not only to get caught up on some of the stuff that we need to do around the house, because usually most of us have a 4-day weekend, but also to make some new memories and to reconnect with your family. And that brings me to the next thing. And this is really what's driving me and driving this episode home is, parents, listen, your children are not your do-over in life. Your grandchildren are not your opportunity to be better than you were. They're not your little puppet that you can dress them up and take pictures of them and look at this and look at that. These are small, independent thinking humans that we have to mold and help grow into the best humans that they can be. They are not your redemption story, and they are not your little vessel to pour your unfinished or unrealized dreams and goals into. And that's a hard lesson for a lot of people to swallow. This is going to hit every parent who ever tried to steer your kids towards a future that the kid never asked for. It's going to hit anyone who's been through a divorce, co-parenting, blended families, or raising adult kids. I can talk about raising adult children now because all of my kids are adults, but they were at one time small children. And unfortunately, we've got children of divorce. We are a very blended, mixed family, and we've seen everything that I'm about to talk to firsthand, whether we've dealt with it directly or whether we've dealt with it through our children and their chosen spouses. Look, here's 2 things that happened this week, and this is speaking to you parents of adult children right now. And we'll get into the other stuff later because it's kind of an emotional topic for me. But speaking to you parents of adult children right now, I had 2 huge things, and they seem kind of insignificant at the time, but they're blended together. They're huge. So if you guys are listening, and I believe both of you that called me this week or following the podcast understand what we're talking about. I got a call midweek requesting a little bit of my time from young man who's become a trusted friend over the years. I've known him for a long time. And I know his family. Called me looking for advice, and I'm not going to get too specific. He was kind of lost. He had to walk away from what he was doing previously because it wasn't filling him. It wasn't his dream. It wasn't his goal. And he chose to leave with nothing rather than to continue to pursue something that did not make him happy. Well, what he happened to be doing was pursuing his mother and his father's dreams for his life and not his own. And he was good at it, which adds another complication. If you suck at something, it's easier to walk away from it. If you're good at it and you're good at this career that you have not chosen, well, that makes it even harder, especially if that career produces a lot of cash. And the one that you are choosing doesn't necessarily produce a lot of cash on the front side. So we had a good talk. We had to talk about what he really wants to do. We had to talk about his parents. We had to talk about the emotions associated, because oftentimes these things end in a fight, because as parents, we imagine this ideal future for our children and we try and throw things at it to make it happen as much as possible. And this looks different for everybody. Sometimes it's paying for college. Sometimes it's getting them set up on an internship. Sometimes it's getting them an apprenticeship. Whatever we believe that the best path for our children's life is, we try and facilitate that in the best way that we know how. We want our children to be more successful than we were. We want to see them not struggle as much as we did. The one piece that we leave out of this, well, and we tend to get pissed off whenever they don't buy into what we're trying to teach them. We get angry at them. We throw ourselves on that altar of, you have to do this, or what you're doing doesn't matter. The one piece that we forget about this is we forget to ask our children what they really want, what their goals and dreams are. And somehow, even when we do ask our children this, which is rare, we expect them at 18, 19, 20 years old to know what they want to do for the rest of their lives. I don't know about you guys out there, but I was kind of an idiot in my early 20s and my late teens. I couldn't no more predict what I wanted to do with my life than I could buy shoes that fit. That's another story. I mean, understand, folks, that our kids are not automatons. They are not mini-me's, no matter how much we like to pull the comparisons. I mean, I always say that my youngest son is dug right square out of my ass. Well, it's true. He does have a lot of my mannerisms, but that's the nature of being a parent. But it doesn't mean that the goals and dreams that I have for him and pour into him are what matters to him. We got to let our kids figure this out for themselves without being mad at them. And this is hard to do because we've spent their entire life pouring into them, paying their way, making sure they had a safety net. So somehow as parents, we feel like we're entitled for them to follow the dreams and goals that we've laid out for them. And that's just not true. So as adult parents, if you found yourself having this argument, or you remember having this argument, or worse, there's some alienation in your life because you've had this argument and you're just like, well, if you're not going to do this, oh, well, too bad. Or whatever the argument ended in, where you're not talking with that child anymore, maybe reach back out to them. Maybe listen to what their life looks like from their eyes, and then be excited and be happy for them. Here's the truth, and the brutal truth, as the internet likes to say, I think because ChatGPT talks about that a lot. You will eventually reconcile. And when you do, you're going to realize that you missed a lot of years because you're fucking stubborn. Stop it. Just stop. Swallow your pride, swallow your ego, and listen to your kids for once. Listen to what they want. And if you start this when they're a teenager, your life's going to be a hell of a lot easier. But if you're one of these parents that's already fallen into this trap and alienated your child because their vision for their life doesn't match yours, reach out to them, swallow your pride, and call them. They're hurting. They want your approval. Well, maybe they don't want your approval. They'd like it. But if you can't give your approval, at least give your support. Be proud of them for where they're at. Be proud of them for having the guts to go pursue their dreams and goals in life and do what they want. This is a hard pill to swallow as parents. But parents, what this does to your children is, whenever the flip side of that argument is, you now have this adult child who's lost, who's used to relying on you for their support system, who wants to be independent, who wants to make you proud of them, and they feel like they fundamentally disappointed you about the biggest decision they've ever made in their life, the one that they're excited about, and they end up hurting you because of it. So now they have to choose to do something that fulfills them, or what they believe is going to fulfill them at this point, or letting their parent down and possibly alienating their parents. And parent, once you look at the emotions of that and realize that your children did it anyway, that your adult children did it anyway, holy shit, that's a game changer. Because you realize how badly they want what it is that they want. They just want the same opportunity that you had and that you took to make their life and make their own way in the world. You cannot force somebody else's dreams upon them. Now, the second thing that happened the next day, actually, is Ashton reached out to me and got a message early in the morning, because he works just about as early as I do, and said, I want to take the motorcycle endorsement for my driver's license, or something along those lines. I was like, okay, well, you can afford it. Sign up for the class. Do it. Well, I don't want mom to be mad at me. And Des had a motorcycle accident when she was younger, and she doesn't like motorcycles. It's just, she doesn't hate them. She just doesn't want one for herself, and she worries about the kids being on them, especially the young men, because our young men can tend to be kind of reckless and aggressive and all that good stuff. All the reasons why people are afraid of motorcycles. Mom doesn't like them, and she makes that very clear. So his concern was that mom was going to be mad at him. And I'm like, look, mom's fears are not your dreams, and mom's fears should not dictate your dreams. She's not going to like it. Just accept that. But that's okay. She's not going to turn away from you. She's not going to hate you. Go, do what you want. Pursue your dreams. Be careful about it. Make sure that you come home tomorrow. This is how you support your children's dreams, even if you don't agree with them, is you lead with love. You help them understand that they need to pursue their dreams and they need to pursue their goals, and you love them where they're at. And this is not easy to do as an adult. We cannot continue the cycle of trying to have our children live vicariously, or having us live vicariously through our children. Let them be who they are. Now, this doesn't mean to alienate them as a family. And there's certain things that we do together, and there's certain expectations that we have of our children, especially if we have a family business or what have you. Now, I've had to realign that, because none of my children want to do any one of my businesses at all. They don't want to have anything to do with it. Some of them want to work inside of it for the immediate cash, but the long term, it just doesn't appeal to them. It was a difficult pill to swallow. I figured out of 7, I'd at least have 1, but it didn't. Now, there's some other things that as we move forward and as we move on, and as Des and I pass the business on, they're going to have to do some things, either to continue those or sell them or what have you. That's not what I'm talking about. But again, that's also breaking generational cycles, because we both came from very blue collar fields. I came from absolute poverty. So did she. Not absolute poverty. She grew up, her dad, and managed to take care of her in a very good way, but we want to leave more of a legacy for our children. So there's going to be some things there, but that is not an expectation of dreams. That's just an expectation of participation in your legacy. That's it. So those are not the same thing, but we tend to conflate them and go from there. Talk to your children. Talk about what their dreams are. We do this with little kids. Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a police officer. I want to be this. I want to be that. But we stop somewhere around, I don't know, 14, 15. When things start getting serious, we stop asking them what they want and we start telling them what we want. That doesn't make any sense. Don't do it. So when you understand and you've talked to them, you've taken the time to understand their dream, you feel proud of them for chasing it down, especially if they have to turn away from what you've wanted for them. And if you've put some time and money and effort into that, that makes a big difference. But when you don't understand it, you feel scared for them. And sometimes that fear in our part comes across as anger, especially as guys, because we don't like to feel scared. And we tend to show that with anger, and that comes across to our children. And then all they feel is pressure and they feel disappointment. Break this cycle, folks. And if you've had this conversation, you're an adult now, you've had this conversation with your parents, try and look at it from your parents' perspective. They only want what's best for you, and they don't have any idea how to enforce it. Because ultimately, and this is a takeaway from this episode, if you don't take anything else away from this episode, take this away, is that we're all traveling through this life for the first time. There's no instruction manual. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We're parents, we're trying to figure it out as we go. So parents, you're doing the best you can. Ease up on your children a little bit. Children, maybe ease up on your parents a little bit, because they're just trying to figure it out too. They really are just trying to do what's best for you. And we all have some toxic parents out there that don't do or don't have our best interest at heart. That makes sense to eliminate them and to alienate them, but you don't argue with them. You just understand they're toxic and you keep them at an arm's distance, or whatever analogy you want to use in there. Remember, we're all just figuring this out for the first time. We're all just doing the best that we can. Parents, we tend to have an identity crisis in today's society. Our children dictate what we do, and they end up dictating our lives. And I see this over and over and over again. Oh, we got to get junior to here. We got to get junior there. They got travel balls, so one parent's gone a lot, and this and that. Your children should not be dictating your life. It should be the other way around. Yes, you want them to have the greatest opportunity, but I hate this for you to be a news flash, but your kid's probably not going to be a pro ball player, even though they're playing travel ball and they're playing baseball 360 out of the 365 days a year. I should let that sink in for a moment. Maybe let them be a kid. Maybe allow yourself to explore some other things. Maybe allow yourself to have a hobby. Maybe do some cool stuff that they don't necessarily like to do. And you know what? There are kids out there that are just super into their sports. They're super dedicated to it. And that's going to be their way into college and what have you. But make sure it's their dream and not yours. Why don't you ask your kid if they really want to be playing ball that much and if they want to be traveling that much? We traveled with Kyle for Taekwondo for years, and he loved it. And then whenever he didn't love it anymore, we stopped. We didn't force him to do it because it's a brutal, grueling lifestyle. Basically, we're forcing these children to have full-time jobs, if not more. High school band is another one. I was in the band, but man, the commitment level for band parents is astronomical. It's another full-time job, let alone the children who, in addition to school, now have all these extra hours of practice every weekend. They're traveling all the time. If that's what you want to do and that's what you love, that's fine. But don't allow things you think you're supposed to do to dictate your life. And also, don't lose your identity as parents because you're spending so much time allowing your children to dictate what you do. It's okay to let your kids go play outside and go ride their bikes and go have some unstructured free time. As a matter of fact, it's good for them. Anybody who's ever failed in life or failed at something when they were younger, we always try and help our kids make sure that they don't do it. But the Jordan Peterson quote comes to mind in relation to this. It said, never do for somebody else what they can do for themselves. So let them figure it out. Let them fail. Let them figure out what they want to do, and then let them be good at it. You can help them, but don't force them. And I'm not talking about, I start at the beginning of the season. I don't want to play ball. No, you're going to finish the season because that teaches you about commitment. But if you start playing baseball and you finish the season, it doesn't mean that you're then committed to 12 more seasons after that. If you don't want to play it anymore, let your kids go on and figure out what they really do want. This does not mean you failed as a parent. It doesn't mean that your children are failing. All it means is that moving forward, your children will be more well-rounded and they won't resent you as much for taking away the things that they thought they wanted to do. Again, as parents, we have to limit that. Look at it this way. You wouldn't allow your child to sit on their video game for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Well, or 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. You wouldn't allow that. It's not healthy. Yet we will let them or force them to play ball for that amount of time over and over and over again because we think it's good for them, teaches them team sports and what have you. It may be as mentally damaging for them as sitting there playing a video game long term. It's easier to hate the video game because it's not something we interact with them on, and it's not something that was our dream. Maybe it was when you were younger. I don't know. This also prevents you from being fully present in their lives and making these memories with them. I use Nicole as an example a lot because I've been able to be present and conscious with her in making these memories. And with the older children, I was there. I was a full-time entrepreneur, so I was able to be there with them and make these memories with them. Obviously, Ashton got the most of that because he was the youngest. But even then, with Haley and with Gary and with John and with the older three, I was able to be there. I was able to be present for them at many, many times during their lives and make memories with them, which is ultimately, this is all we have left at the end. So at the end of your life, you're either going to have a massive amount of regret and a few memories, or you're going to have a massive amount of memories and a little bit of regret. The little bit of regret will always be there a little bit. There'll always be something you wish you'd done differently or done better. But you get to choose as a parent which one you have. Don't choose the regret side. It's not worth it. Sometimes maybe back off a little bit, let them fail, let them figure stuff out, let them stand back up and know that they're safe. This is going to help them long term as they grow up because they'll have a lot more skills whenever they walk out than if you just solved everything for them. Now, that being said, both parents are important in a child's life. A two-parent household is a lot stronger, and we are a blended family. I understand Des and I were both married before, but we've been together 25 years, pushing 26 years at this point, and our children grew up in a two-parent family that was stable. And it's important. Fathers are important in this house and in your household, and mothers are just as important in the household. There's a lot to be said about relationships, and we can't get along, and we can't this, and we can't that. But we live in a society that if something's broken, we throw it away and we get a new one. And unfortunately, that bleeds over into our relationships. And what this does to children is it fractures their psyche. And I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just speaking from experience, coming from a broken home, having dealt with multiple other step parents, adoptive parents, and what have you. I've seen all of this happen over and over again. And now, as a grandparent, watching my children have children and then seeing what their significant others and their spouses do, watching these women weaponize these children against these men, holding it over their head, attempting control, and a lot of times succeeding because men want to be around their children. It just creates this terrible, broken environment to raise these children in. And men or women who, if you're weaponizing your children against somebody that you hate, all you're doing is hurting that small, innocent life. You are not making a difference. Now, in the short term, you may have so much anger and hate built up against that person that you had a child with that you think this is the only way to get some sort of redemption for you because they hurt you. And maybe they, in your mind, this makes sense. You're punishing an innocent child for crimes and for emotional hurts that they never did, that they never had, and that they never created. But in addition to that, you're creating a psychological environment that teaches them that this is okay, that this is the way that life is supposed to be, that life is supposed to be constant fighting and chaos. And, well, why isn't my dad coming around? And you may be the one keeping them from them. And if you're the one keeping them from them and then either lying to them or telling them, well, he doesn't want to, while dad is diligently trying to come around and see their children, this is your fault. This is on you. And you need to step up, step outside of yourself and do what's best for your kid. You know what? If you have to deal with the fact that you had a child with a man who is just a deadbeat and who doesn't come around and doesn't attempt to come around, well, you need to deal with that and you have to talk about it and you need to be real candid with it, age appropriately, of course. But if your ex is honestly trying to come around, and the reason this is so heavily focused towards women and men and towards fathers in general is because in the United States, the majority of single parents, full-time single parents, are women. And there's a lot of fathers out there that are fighting to see their children, and the women are just holding them over their head and forcing them to jump through an innumerable amount of just ridiculous hoops to be able to see and be a part of their children's lives because they're angry at them for the emotional abuse or whatever it was that they took in the relationship. So if this sounds like you, or guys, if you're struggling with this right now, stop it. Break that cycle. Don't be so afraid to fight for your children, which you shouldn't have to fight for your children on either side. But if you do, then understand that and accept it. And you know what? You may not win, but at least you fought. There will come a time, there will come a reckoning where you get to interact with your child and you would look at them in the eyes and say, you know what? Here's what I did to attempt to be a part of your life. And I was refused at every turn. And be able to prove it. Bring the receipt. Because again, we're not dealing with mindless automatons. We are dealing with small humans who have emotions, who have love, who have affection, and get confused because maybe their parents are not telling them the truth, Maybe there's so much vitriol and anger that both of them go back and forth and they can't seem to get along a co-parent in any kind of normal way. But also because that same mechanism that children figure stuff out with, and that's so cute because they come up with solutions to things because they puzzled them out for themselves, may not be accurate, but it fits the scenario. They do this with relationships too. They do this with your relationship. They do this with their relationship with their parents, both of them, independently and together. Find a way, if you can't get along, find a way to at least work together on a fundamental level so your children do not have to deal with this. Ultimately, two present parents makes a bigger difference. And if you can't figure out how to fix your relationship long term, staying in a relationship where both of you hate each other, that's not a good example either. Find a way to co-parent, find a way to raise that child in an environment of love and acceptance, whether you're together or not. If you can stay together and you work it out together to be long-term, you know what? You got 2 wins there because your children grow up in a stable 2-parent home. But at the end, you still have to be in love with your spouse. So if you've made that choice to continue to work through what you're working through and be in love with your spouse, whenever your children grow, then you two still have something there and still have a reason to be together. Don't be in such a hurry to throw your relationship away because things get hard that you sacrifice what can truly be a relationship that will fulfill you for the rest of your life. And that is a whole different topic that I don't want to talk about right now. But I do want to make sure you guys understand that weaponizing children is always wrong. There's never a time when it's okay to hold children over somebody else's head. Mother, father, doesn't matter, or grandparents for that matter. Again, if they're truly, truly a toxic person, then you have to deal with that. But ask yourself, are they really toxic or are they just toxic for me? Do they take care of their children? Do they take care of their grandchildren? Do they help? Do they look? Because you're not only affecting that child mentally by what you do, but you're affecting that other parent, you're affecting that grandparent by that alienation. We all have our stories. We all have that pain inside and some of those regrets. So take it as somebody who's a father of 7, who's a grandfather of about to be 6. You love uninhibitedly and unabashedly, but that also means you open yourself up for hurt. And unfortunately, sometimes people will take advantage of that. Don't be that person that takes advantage of that for your own gain or for your own pleasure. And yes, there are people out there that take pleasure in other people's pain. Don't be that person. Make an environment where your children have the absolute best opportunity to succeed, even when you and the other parent disagree, even when you and the other grandparent disagree. Now, sometimes this means having some uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes this means setting some boundaries and expecting them to be enforced. But here's the thing. If you want to be a part of your child's life, you want to be a part of your grandchild's life, you're going to create the absolute best environment that you possibly can. And you should do that, supporting your children, even when you disagree with their other parent. Co-parenting means finding ways to cooperate moving forward. Yes, you both have a say. And yes, you need to figure out what the best thing is moving forward. But once that decision is made, don't continue to keep remaking it and don't continue to keep causing strife because you want to change the agreement once you've agreed to something. Once you've agreed to a way to move forward, unless there's a fundamental reason or something outside of the agreement that's changed that's going to force a different agreement, stick to it, enjoy the time, and raise the most functional children that you possibly can. Here's your final challenge. Here's your takeaway. Parents, I want you to sit down. I want you to think. I want you to pick one grandkid, one kid a day for the next few days, however many of them you have in your life. And I want you to think about the good memories, and I want you to think about the challenging memories, and I want you to think about all the stuff that's associated with that child specifically that's in your heart and that's in your head. I don't want you to give them advice. I don't want you to try and correct them. I just want you to remind them of the one memory that means the most to you, that is the most powerful to you, and why. And share that with them. And tell them in the second part of the message why you're proud of them and why you're proud of who they're becoming. That's it. Leave that alone. And this can go to little children. This can go to adult children. It doesn't matter. Heck, if you're in your 70s or 80s and listen to this, God, I hope so, because this is old man energy after all. Send this to your kids that are in their 40s and 50s. It'll make just as big of a difference, I promise you. And then see what that does for your relationship. See how that opens your relationship. And here's the thing. If there's apologies that are in order, quit being so pig-headed and reach out to them. Make the apology. Ask for the forgiveness. Yes, this applies to parents. This applies to children too. Because you can either break this cycle or you can perpetuate this cycle. It's entirely up to you. And it's not a big deal to start. but it is a big deal when it finishes. Remember, your child's path is no place for your ego. Your child's life is no place for your plans. This is theirs. Let them do it. Be a spectator, be their cheerleader, be their mentor, be their guide. Help them become the best human that they can be. This starts in infancy and it grows and it should never stop. And then you get to enjoy them as adults and you have a much more functional relationships that's not alienating anybody as you get older because it's based on love, it's based on admiration, but most importantly, it's based on respect. If you guys have made it this far, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I'm always awkward whenever I say this, and I don't know why. I want you to follow me. I want you to like, and I want you to subscribe. I also want you to share. We're pushing 1,000 people on YouTube, and I would like to see us go over that 1,000 number by Christmas. Actually, by the end of the year. We're just by the end of the year. It's another week. It doesn't really matter that much. Like, subscribe. Send this to somebody who this will make a difference in their life. Tune in next week, and we will talk about, we're not sure. We'll see. Love y'all. Peace.